I just want to preface this by saying this is just a fun power scaling debate. It's also a good way to highlight the differences in Fallout's gameplay systems between older games and the newer games. It's not that serious, but it is a good way to understand Fallout 2's RPG system. I saw this post somewhere claiming Mama Murphy could easily beat up Frank Horrigan in a fight. It's kind of become something of a meme. The claim is essentially that because Mama Murphy has 19 strength in her special stats while Horrigan only has 10, she could easily beat him in melee or hand-to-hand combat. I'm sorry, but there's no fucking way. In lore, there's just no way an elderly woman who's also a drug addict beats a genetically modified cyborg. Maybe her psychic powers give her an advantage in avoiding Frank, but that's not really the question, is it? Besides, with as vague as a lot of her predictions are, how helpful is that really? The point of these posts and the memes is really about in-game stats, not lore. Part of the difficulty here is that Fallout 2 and Fallout 4 are just such different games, it's difficult to even make that comparison. And in another sense, it really doesn't matter, because Frank Horrigan still wins either way. People looking at stats saying Mama Murphy could win are just looking at special alone, and what they're not accounting for is Frank Horrigan's insane armor class damage threshold and damage resistance. In Fallout 1 and 2, characters and enemies have 3 stats that can negate damage: armor class, damage threshold, and damage resistance. The games deal with them in that order. All 3 are factored into damage rolls and can reduce or completely negate damage done. Armor class modifies the chance the character gets hit. It reduces the chance of the hit connecting at all. Frank's is 45. For comparison, a Deathclaw has an armor class of 5. Frank is 9 times harder to hit than a Deathclaw. Let's just ignore that though. Let's give Mama Murphy the advantage of saying she hits him every time. Remember that in Fallout 1 and 2, skills and dice rolls determine how often you hit. Because she doesn't have skills, it's impossible to say how often she hits him. With Fallout 1 and 2 skill rolls and Frank's high armor class, she's not hitting him every time, but let's just imagine that she does. Assuming a hit, the damage done is first reduced by the damage threshold and then by the damage resistance. Any damage dealt less than the threshold does no damage. Any damage above it is reduced by the threshold and then reduced further by the damage resistance. Frank Horrigan has a damage threshold of 20 and damage resistance of 70%. For comparison, a Deathclaw has a damage threshold of 2 and a damage resistance of 15%. So Mama Murphy having fought a Deathclaw really doesn't mean much. Horrigan is much tougher than a Deathclaw. In order to reduce Horrigan by 1 hit point, you would need to deal 24 points of damage to account for his DT and DR soaking it up. Need I remind you he has 999 HP in a game when Deathclaws only had 50? In hand-to-hand combat, Mama Murphy can't even damage Frank. Whether we calculate damage according to Fallout 2 or Fallout 4's formula, she can't deal more than 20 damage to him to get past his damage threshold hand-to-hand. Frank, meanwhile, he's only doing 6 to 7 damage to her per punch, but because she doesn't have damage threshold or damage resistance, she's losing health while he's not. In a hand-to-hand fight, Frank wins every time. What if we give them melee weapons? This game is about strength, so guns and explosives aren't really a part of it. In Fallout 2, the strongest melee weapon is a super sledge, which can do a maximum of 35 damage. Remember that in Fallout 2, there was a random dice roll to determine the damage amount within a range. When you account for her strength and his damage threshold and resistance, she's doing at best, 9 points of damage per swing, even if she lucked out and got an amazing critical roll. Remember, criticals could have different multipliers based on another dice roll. She's doing at most 54 damage from multiple perfect dice rolls in a row. That's a lot of swinging to take down his 999 health. If we give her a Fallout 4 weapon, it's a little better for her. Adam's Judgment's probably the heaviest hitting melee weapon in Fallout 4. There's other good weapons of bleed damage or something if you're actually playing the game. Adam's Judgment, though, does 140 damage in a swing, which is pretty top tier for damage per hit. And Fallout 4 gives a 10% bonus to melee weapons for each point of strength, so she's doing about 406 damage per hit, except, again, for Frank's damage threshold to damage resistance. Once she gets past those, she's only doing about 115 damage per swing. She's gonna have to hit him 9 times to take him down. And maybe she could if Frank was unharmed. But if he has the same weapon, Frank with Adam's Judgment is dealing 280 damage to Mama Murphy per hit, and she only has 190 HP. Frank one-shots Mama Murphy if they have the same weapon. Again, there's just no way she wins. So while you can find memes like this, a more gameplay and lore accurate name would be more like this. If anything, this just shows how different the old RPGs are from newer, more action-based games. The game systems are just so different. It's comparing the cliche to apples and oranges. It's like asking who would win in a fight between Cloud and Master Chief. Maybe there's an in-universe answer, but how do you actually discuss stats when one character is even from a game that has any? How would Frank Horrigan's damage threshold work in a game that doesn't have that mechanic? What skills does Mama Murphy have since Fallout 4 doesn't have skills? How do we tell who does what when in a shooter where there aren't action points or sequence? It's hard to answer any of that, but I can say this for sure. Mama Murphy only got as far as she did because she hadn't met Frank Horrigan.